Mr. Conroy.
Hi guys, how
What's
are you?
going on?
I play Batty. Hello everybody.
Hello, sir.
So Batman drinks tea, is that?
Batman's a big tea drinker.
Alfred taught him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Mr. Conroy. We're 20 years deep on Batman Beyond. How do you feel about that? I mean, after doing the Batman
feel
animated
like,
series and all.
Where did the time go? You know, it's that thing where you turn around and you think, I've been doing this for 27 years. That's not possible. It just goes so fast. You know, it's like life. You put one foot in front of the other, and you're so into putting your feet down that you don't realize how many miles you've run. You know what I mean? So I feel very lucky to have been given the opportunity to play the character and to have it resonate with the audience the way it has. And because of that, been asked to do it again and again and again.
Yeah, we heard somebody's going to be Batman again in live action.
Well, Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne live action.
Wepa! 80-year-old
Can't wait.
Bruce Wayne.
What was your reaction when...
Get off my lawn.
Get out of my back. What was your reaction when they offered you that role?
Oh, I was ecstatic. I was so happy. But I said to the producer, I said, I know you know my voice, but do you know what I look like? I don't look 80, you know. I can sound 80, but I don't. And they said, no, we know what you look like.
They said,
we know what we're casting. They said, we think you look 80 just fine.
How are you going to take to prepare for this really big event that's about to happen?
Well, I'm in the midst of recording as we speak. I mean, I flew in from Vancouver to do this. So I've already done a bunch of it. And I haven't done anything on camera since '95.
Oh, wow.
Valerie Harper's last show was my last show. We did it, I worked with her in a show called The Office in '95. We did like 6 episodes and I don't think it ever got on the air. After that I just got offered voice job, and I realized after a while, this is what I do, you know. It wasn't a conscious decision, it's just I became really busy doing voices and making a good living at it, so that sort of took over. But I never wanted to stop doing on camera. I've done a little bit of stage in the interim, but no on camera. So getting back in front of the camera is different. Because when you're in a sound stage, there's something very comforting for me about it. I can be, whereas some people might find a microphone intimidating, I find it liberating. I get really comfortable with a microphone. In a sound booth, I feel like I'm in a sort of a womb, and I can be completely, insanely free, and I don't care. I lose all inhibitions. And Andrea said it's like watching a 12-year-old watching me in a sound booth. She said, you go nuts in there, and I do. And when I'm outside the room, I get much more inhibited. I'm naturally a fairly shy person, and I am less comfortable outside the room. So getting back on a stage with all of the cameras and all the crew around me, you know, there are hundreds of people on a sound stage. Suddenly you're acting, you're inhabiting the character, but you're not in that room anymore. So for the first couple of minutes, it was weird, you know. It took adjustment, and I thought, you are Bruce Wayne. You know, I just got into the head of the character and began to inhabit him again. And you know what made it easy? The actress I'm working with, Ruby Rose, is so genuine and so generous. And to have her on the other side of the camera giving me so much, it just pulled me in. I was just in her eyes. I just fell into her eyes and the character. I forgot about everyone else around us. And I said to her afterwards, I said, we are cooking out there. To work with good actors, it makes it so rewarding, you know? It's like why I love working with Mark. I say to Mark all the time, Mark Hamill, you are the reason I am the Batman I am. And he says to me, you are the reason I am the Joker I am, which is, I think, pretty generous of him. But
No, but genuine.
we're the yin and yang for each other. I mean, we really... Acting is acting, but I always say it really should be called reacting. It's really it's how you're reacting, whether to another actor or to life stimulus or something. What you're doing is reacting to something, and the camera's capturing it. And when it's someone like Mark or Ruby, who gives so much, it makes it so much fun. And so it makes you realize why you wanted to become an actor. You know? Because let's face it, 90% of the time you're dealing with bull. You know, getting the job, fighting for the job, dealing with producers, dealing with publicity. You know, there's all this stuff. But when you're finally on a stage, inhabiting a role, and you think, this is why I'm here. This is why I do it.
Speaking of dealing with the bull, part of your 27 years of voicing Batman has been coming here year after year and going to San Diego year after year. Is there one that you prefer over the other, or would you just rather be done with both of them?
I love going to Comic-Cons. I don't just to San Diego, New York. I go all over the place. Because the one bad thing about doing voice work is, the reason I became an actor was because when I'm on stage, as I said earlier, my inhibitions kind of leave me. I'm no longer shy. I am comfortable. When the dark comes down on the audience and the light comes up on me, I feel safe. Whereas a normal person, I think, freaks out. I feel safe. And I can show my heart. But when you do voice work, you send your performance out into the ether. You never have that intimacy with the audience. You never get that feedback. So for 27 years, I've been doing that and not getting the juice back, you know what I mean? So the place you get it is here, at Comic-Cons. I come to Comic-Cons, and the people, the reaction to this character is so incredible. I had a woman come up to me at Chicago Comic-Con, and she said, "Can I hug you?" I said, "Of course." And as I was hugging her, she started to cry. She said, "You don't understand what you did for me. I had a really rough childhood. And most of the kids I grew up with are either dead or in jail." She said, I grew up in a really rough area.
Lots of questions.
She said, "But you were my safe place every afternoon. And you taught me so much." And she was crediting this animated character with being her life preserver. I've heard that from dozens of people. And I think, you know, we forget how hard life is for so many kids, especially. And animation is a safe zone. And when you're playing a character who's so purely good and noble, you're giving them like a life preserver. So for an actor, to know that your work is having that effect on people, I mean, that's incredible. It's incredible. So I feel very fortunate.
Kevin, just one thing. Now that Pattinson is Batman, right?
I have to take it.
Oh, just real quick. I just want to see if you could do a voiceover, man.
Everybody
Move it
has
back
to have.
Absolutely.
Get Andrea Romano.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kevin.
I apologize about my voice, you guys.
Oh, listen to mine.
You too.
Party time, baby. Jeez.
Ms. Romano.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Kurt.
Hello, Kurt.
If I can ask, talk about the dynamic between Kevin and Mark Hamill playing Batman and the Joker. They play off each other so well, the yin and yang, Cain and Abel aspect. Can you just talk about how that came together?
I always like an ensemble record. That means all the actors in the room at the same time in order to get that. Because it's very hard to get, you know, if you ask me that question by sending it in and I listen to it, 2 weeks later, and then I try to answer your question, it might not be in the same energy of what you asked it, right? But if you're sitting on me with me, I can answer it exactly the way you asked it. And so the same thing with actors. Batman says something, Joker responds because he said it a certain way. Joker says something, and Batman responds because he said it a certain way. And so that back and forth, I have to credit the actors with it. They were the ones that were able to find what buttons were pushed by each other's characters, what angered the Joker about what Batman was doing, what angered vice versa. And interestingly, I would like to have, in a perfect situation, there's the Joker, Mark, there's Kevin, Batman, there's Friedel, young Batman, and they all get to act together. So that what happens is Will then gets to hear how Kevin reacts to Mark, and either play it the same way or a different way on purpose. He can make an informed decision then because he's heard it just then. He's heard the performance just happen. And that's ensemble recording, and that's acting and reacting, and that's, I think, what brings that dynamic. What you've got is two dynamic people, Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. You put them in the room together and they just go at it. It's really a fun experience.
I just want to say I'm glad you're here this year, because you've definitely been missed the past few years, and I'm glad you're in good health.
Thank you very much. I am. I'm healthy. My throat is bad today, but I'm in good health.
Glad to hear that. I didn't know you were ill.
I retired because I lost my vision in my left eye. I developed something called optic neuropathy, which is hardly ever heard of, and within 3 days my left eye went blind. And so if you were to walk around with covering your eye, you'd see that you can function really quite well. But the prognosis was that within 3 to 5 years, it's not unlikely that the other eye would be affected. And so the idea of working in a dark, cold recording studio, which is where the majority of my work is done, for 3 years, and then maybe walking out without being able to see was not an option. So my husband and I retired, and we've been seeing the world. I spent a month in Tuscany last year, which was awesome. We just came back from Chicago, never had been to Chicago before. What a fabulous city. I try to do Comic-Cons whenever I can. I hope people will invite me as much as possible because, while I'm still pertinent, while people still care what I have to say, I want to go out, and especially this being an anniversary of a project that was so cool. It was a project that wasn't based on existing material. Everybody didn't have their little thoughts about what this was because they read the comic books. It didn't exist yet. We had this freedom to create this new young kid, Batman. And I love the fact that he just wasn't right there and all together, okay, now I'm young Batman. He fought it, Bruce Wayne had to really train him. And they kind of mess with each other. And I like that dynamic of, he was a punk, and Batman would toy with him. He'd let the suit freeze. He had control of the suit, and so poor Will is trying and then release it and take pleasure in it.
Oh, woo.
And now, well, first of all, you're always welcome to Detroit for a con.
Invite me.
I will do what I can. And talk about this milestone anniversary of this groundbreaking show, man.
Isn't it amazing that 20 years after, a show that was made as a show in the future still works as a show in the future? It's like, you watch a Star Trek, the original Star Trek series, and you go, oh, well, the communicators, we all had flip phones. It's exactly that. But this one still has stuff like invisibility and things like that. They just go, where's my invisibility suit? I'm still waiting for my invisibility suit. But I love the music was modern. It was completely different than the Batman score from Batman the Animated Series. I love that the art was different. It was much more angular and different. The villains were different. We did bring some villains back in from the original series, but it opened up a whole new world for all of us. And what is so rewarding is how the fans are responding to it. They all are remembering how much they like the series, and that means a lot to us because we created it. It wasn't something that was already existing in any other form. Sorry, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to ask, now it's also can be found on streaming services, so
right.
Now it's getting introduced to new fans, so how does that feel?
This is
that it's being introduced to more people?
It's the best, and what someone asked me why do I enjoy going to Comic-Cons, and I explained because basically it's dozens of people coming up and saying nice things to me. So why wouldn't I go? And as you say, but someone will come up and say, I watched Batman the Animated Series. I rushed home after school every day to make sure not to miss it. And now my son and I watch it. And that's way cool. And so I love that that it was good enough that the parents thought, I want my son to know this series too. And they're liking it. Because, animation has improved, changed, it's much more sophisticated, and yet there's still really, really silly things being made.
Yes.
But it's still good, it's still valid, it's still worth watching, it still holds up, and that's what you hope to do, is do something that's 10 years later, 20 years later, still going to be of interest to anybody.
So prior to getting involved in Batman animated series, got me young, were you a comic book fan and familiar with all of this?
No, because women my age didn't read comic books. If we did, it was, Betty and Veronica, or the romance comics, where the women's tears. But we didn't, not action comics, we just didn't. It wasn't the time. So I got a whole education in comic books. I had to learn how to read comic books. I didn't understand, okay, that blue in that color means that's Batman's thought. That's Superman's thought. That's Batman actually speaking out loud. That's Superman speaking. Where do I go? Which parts? Because I didn't know that as a kid. I had to learn how to read comic books. But I had some of the best teachers: Alan Burnett, Bruce Timm, James Tucker, all these guys, Paul Dini, all these people who I would say, I don't know who Red Tornado is. Can you tell me? I have to cast him for 2 lines. So you can't just guess. You have to know something about what that character is about. Is it an ethnic character? Is it what do I need to do? You had a question. I don't know.
Oh yes, I did. Going back to how it's still futuristic till this day. I saw how it pulled elements of Blade Runner in
Right.
1984. Did they actually inspire part of?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I can't say because that's more of the art side of it, and I didn't have much control over that or information about that. But as a fan, I say that I see that too. I also love that it wasn't just about crime and Batman and crime and Batman and bad guys. It was about what happens in high school when you're trying to develop your personality, your friends, what you're going to be like. Terry McGinnis is trying to have a relationship with his girlfriend, and Bruce Wayne keeps calling him to take care of something, and his mother is constantly yelling at him for getting home so late and not doing his schoolwork, and all those things are real as far as a girlfriend who wants your time, schoolwork that needs your time, a job, because that's really what it was, a job that needs your time. And so, I like that. I like that aspect of, and hopefully I think that's what resonated with kids on the show was that, yeah, that happens all the time. You can't always do all the things that you want to because other things take up some of your time.
I got to ask this. You seem to push the envelope of this show because I remember Return of the Joker. Wow, this is really dark. They got away with that? I'll be damned. They got away with that. So.
We had to ask for special dispensation for a lot of stuff on Return of the Joker.
Okay.
That never, ever were we allowed to show blood. Couldn't show blood. Batman could get beat up, and you couldn't even show a trickle. There's blood in Return of the Joker. Just a little, but we're allowed to show blood. I believe we could say, we can't even say, oh my God. And I believe we said once or twice in Return of the Joker we got, again, special dispensation because it was a movie. It wasn't a TV. It wasn't made for TV.
It wasn't going to be on at 4 o'clock after school,
Exactly.
Monday through Friday.
Exactly right. And so, but we had to, we had to be very careful with those things. And I'll ask you to be delicate with this information I'm about to say, but say an actor is supposed to say fraggot, or one of those expressions that we had, some of those phrases, and the actor just couldn't say fraggot. They couldn't say it convincingly, so I would say the real thing, and then echo it with what I was saying, and then fraggot, and then that would be the right reading. But they'd have to say it right after. It's like, son, whatever that thing is, say the really dirty thing, and we'll cut that out, I promise. But then exactly the same way, say the word that we made up for you so that it makes sense. What were some of the other wonderful words we used in the series? It was shui, right? Something was shui. If it was cool, it was shui. And so people would have a hard time. Do you think it's shui? No, I think it's schwarbage. So I love those. We tried to create kind of new, like every generation has
Some new slang.
Exactly right. People like in my day, they say dig it. Dig it was a real popular thing. Dig it, dig it. And so every generation has those kinds of things. And this one was Shui, and it was one other one I forget.
And Sway is used on the Flash series.
It makes me happy. Makes me happy. I think that was might have been Paul Dini. Might have come up with Shui.
I have two things. One,
Please.
you are absolutely just breathtakingly gorgeous, number one.
Nice.
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
And two, you're very welcome, if it's okay to comment on physical. And two, can you talk about being such a strong female role model, for women like me or her or...
My goal in working on these action shows was to bring to it a female viewpoint that would make female viewers want to watch it. I didn't want it just to be a boys' show. I wanted there to be something, whether it was romance or comedy, or I just didn't want it to be beat up. And this show in particular, the Screen Actors Guild gives us 4 hours to record an episode, to rehearse and record an episode. This show I could rehearse and record in less than 2 hours because there was so much action that was done after the fact. We would do the dialogue, it goes away for 6 months, gets animated, comes back, we put all the fight stuff in to match picture. Because you can only do so many, and then because it sounds like a library, it doesn't sound natural. You want to do it to picture. Exactly when that person is doing that. And so it was fast, it was very fast and furious. But I would always stop and say, as I was prepping it, what's going to make this not seem just like a knockdown, drag-out fight for 22 minutes? And that was my goal, was to find a feminine side and to also prove to the animation world that a woman could direct that kind of show without it becoming sappy or too girly or whatever. And I'd like to think I achieved that. I grew up, I'm one of 8 kids, 2 boys and 6 girls. So there was a lot of people in my family. People often ask me, what do I think helped me do what I do? And I always say, being a cheerleader and being one of 8 kids. Because in order, you're in a room with, like say, this many actors, and they're all chatting. How do you get them to be quiet and focus on you and get the work done? And that was cheerleading. That was, pay attention to me, damn it, now, right now. Ready and together. And so, both those things I think helped me a lot. But it was a joyous career. I was so lucky. I fell into it. I didn't even know it was an option when I first started to be a professional of any sort. I was an actress first, and then I became an agent representing voice actors, and then the casting director at Hanna-Barbera, and then a voice director for DuckTales. DuckTales was my first series that I ever did. Isn't that a great show? And then they remade it, and they didn't ask me to come and play on the remake, and I was kind of sad. But then I saw the show, and I went, no, it's a good show. It's okay. They didn't screw it up. If they'd screwed it up, I would have made a fuss. But they didn't. It was good.
Now, you mentioned you didn't want it to be just a boys' show. My sister saw some episodes. She's like, wow, this is really good stuff. I was expecting Adam West and Burt Ward. I'm like, okay, you are behind the times.
She missed the Batman the Animated Series for that transition, because really, when you think about the time, the Adam West series was the only moving picture of Batman that existed, and that was so comical. It was meant to be. It was meant to be. And then we took a big risk in making The Dark Knight a dark series. And they made that series on black paper. Instead of using background paper of white and painting it black to get that dark background, they used black paper. So it already started with a great dark look. So I wanted to make sure that the acting in that series, different than this one, Batman the Animated Series, had a real dark tone to it. And that's why the Joker stories that Adam was. We got more into that with Return of the Joker, because that's this game. Somebody who didn't get a chance.
The panel that you did on voice acting here a few years ago has to be one of the most beloved panels in the history of this convention. Is there any chance that you bring it back one
It would
year?
be my pleasure if they asked me to do it. So whoever you need to ask to make that happen, I would love another trip.
Let's start a petition right now.
Skippy.
It would be I actually would like to come and do a class of 12 people. And
Thank you.
It's so nice to see
Thank you,
you.
Andrea. You rock.
Last few hours of the con.
Thank you.
James Tucker.
James Tucker, everybody.
Director on the series, won an Emmy for the Egg Baby.
The big boss.
Where, Pop? Hello, how are you?
Good to meet you, sir.
How you doing?
How do you balance doing promotions for new stuff coming out? I was sitting at the table with you yesterday, and then these anniversary type events.
Well, the good thing is these type of events, you guys already know and like the stuff that we're pushing, so we don't have to sell it to you so much. So it's a little easier. It's not the pressure isn't. It's like, oh yeah, you worked on something I liked. Hopefully, I mean. But with the new movies, it's always like, yeah, what is this shit you're trying to sell us? So it's a little different. So it's more relaxing.
So for a show that didn't get to finish out its initial run, when did you know it was going to be something that was worthy of the 20th anniversary package?
Last week. You know, it's weird. We did the show, and then it was over, and it kind of went away, and we all spread out and did other things. And then the first DVD set came out, and that did pretty well. And you know, slowly as the internet started growing, we started seeing more people talking about the show still. We're like, wow, they're talking about it now in a way that we didn't really have that when we were doing the show because the internet wasn't what it is now. We're good. I'm glad.
Yeah. Me both.
So we, you know, slowly we're like, yeah, you know, Andrea would say, oh, I went to a con and a lot of people are asking about that now. And, you know, I think as we went out and did appearances and stuff, and we got more and more feedback about that show, it was like, wow, I guess they liked it more than we thought they did based on what we were hearing back then. So.
Why did the show end? Did it just run its course? Did the studio say, okay, you have X amount of episodes to end this, or what? How did it?
Well, originally KISS WB was run by a certain group of people, and in the middle of our second season, that group changed. And the group that came in hated the show. They thought it was violent and awful and not, you know, like creating juvenile delinquency and all this stuff. So we knew the target was on our back then pretty much. And we knew once we hit a certain number, they weren't going to renew. And that's pretty much what happened. So we had no allies at the network at the time. And in fact, the reason Return of the Joker, the uncut version that originally was supposed to come out, the exec that put the kibosh on that was pretty much in charge of not renewing us. So she hated the show. So that's pretty much the truth.
She has no taste.
Yeah, and many things.
We'll leave it at that.
There's a lot of properties being rebooted.
Yes.
Going back, did you think about rebooting anything that you've been a part of?
Well, we were talking about, of all the shows we worked on together, this is probably the one show we thought ended before its time. Like Justice League, you can always make more Justice League, but it's not necessary. We've told a lot of Justice League stories, and BTAS is kind of the same way, but Batman Beyond had room to grow. And so, of all the shows that I'd be excited to go back and do more of, besides my own, like Brave and the Bold, I'd do that in a heartbeat, because that's just fun. But I think as far as storytelling potential, I think Batman Beyond has more left to tell.
I have a bit of a strange question, but a lot of people that watched Batman Beyond, they would think Terry McGinnis, he was Asian or some part of Asian, and they would really feel inspired or even dress up like him because of that. What's your opinion on like people like casting certain like races or qualities on these characters that you're so big and part of?
I mean, you know, you look at a character like Psylocke from the X-Men, and sometimes I think it has a lot to do with who's drawing them. And in our case, for Brave and the Bold,
I love that show.
That was a good show.
Thank you. But Batman Beyond, Glenn Murakami was a big factor in how that show looked and felt. And even though he didn't personally design Terry's, there was an Asian influence in that. We were looking at anime. They'd gone to Tokyo for visits, and I think Glenn, somehow through just the osmosis of who was working on the show, it had more of a more multicultural feel to it. And so I don't know if it was. I don't think. I mean, Bruce Timm designed Terry, and I don't think he purposely gave him that feel. But we noticed as the animation was coming back, and as just the way it just felt that way. So I hadn't heard it that was actually happening, but we kind of felt that it was a natural thing too. We felt it too.
What's your favorite episode that you've ever worked on?
Great, Batman Beyond.
Oh, Batman Beyond, yes.
Out of the Past it was the best script. I only directed 5 episodes. I worked on a lot more as a storyboard artist designer. But when I became a director, I had 5 shots at it, and I like of the ones I did. I like Egg Baby for sentimental reasons because it got us an Emmy. But Out of the Past was the best script.
And how did you feel getting an Emmy for an animated program? How did you feel about getting that Emmy for that animated program?
It was my first ever directing effort.
Wow.
So I was scared crapless. Because it was like this. I was getting pranked for it was like, okay, you're a director. Here's your first script. It's a really jokey, campy thing that normally we didn't do, and I'm like, wait a minute, why are we doing this? Because this isn't what we normally do, and why are you giving it to me? Are you trying to sabotage me? You know, I was paranoid, really paranoid. And Bruce was like, no, it's cool, just lean into it. I think he realized I could do something with it because my tastes do run campy, my tastes do run weird. I like, as Brave and the Bold showed, I'm not afraid of silliness and satire.
I would say you have diverse taste, not
Diverse
weird taste.
taste, okay. Yeah.
Eclectic, diverse taste.
Yeah.
Working on DC superhero projects for going on 30 years.
I'm not 30. I'm not that old. I've been watching them that long. I first got the first DC animated show was Superman the Animated Series. So that's 95. So I'm not quite.
So almost 25 years.
Yeah.
Do they have a good pension system?
Not at all. No, I don't know. I'll find out, I guess. I'll find out.
How did you like working with Tim Danaway as Superman?
You know, I was a storyboard artist then, so I didn't really get to work with him directly because storyboard artists didn't go to the records. But then after the fact, he came in. I worked with his son on Flashpoint because his son was Superman in Flashpoint. And then he came in with his son. So I met him, but I don't think he did any voice work. So I had met him. So it was weird. But he's great. It's funny because I think he retroactively embraces the Superman character. I think he was doing the show, he was a well-known up-and-coming actor at the time, and so he sometimes, and I think this is because animation at the time was growing into its own. BTAS had just ended, but BTAS hadn't acquired the legendary. I don't know if he understood what it meant to be Superman at the time. And so when Justice League came around, he wasn't available. He kind of passed on it, and that's why we ended up with Jordan Newber, who was great for Justice League Superman. And given how we changed Superman a little bit for Justice League and made him a little more dark.
Cocky.
Yeah,
That's what
George was a good choice. I mean, it kind of worked out the way it was supposed to, but then since then, Tim has come back and done the voice for things, and now he really embraces being Superman in a way that I don't know he did when he was doing it originally.
What drove the decision to change Hush's identity from the comic to the recently animated release?
Okay. All I will say is it's one thing to have I forget how many issues there were, spread over almost a 2-year period. The mystery, hey, I remember what happened when the book finished up and people went, that's who it is? That's no mystery. So imagine if you're trying to tell that whole story in 70 minutes, it will feel like a Scooby-Doo. Oh, it is the professor. There was no way to spool that mystery out. We didn't have enough time to really lean into the red herrings that you would do. And no one knows who, in our continuity, no one would know who Jason Todd is. So that whole thing, which I thought was kind of a Well, there. We had
Ace of
so
Spades pretty
the thing
phenomenal.
is the whole crux of the idea that Hush was a mystery did not work in the context of the running time we had because we didn't have enough time to build a mystery to deflect from Thomas Elliot. In fact, because I knew we had to change who Hush was, I had to make Thomas Elliot seem more suspicious, so that for you guys who know who it was would think, oh, it's going to be him. So anyway, and then we leaned into the love story, which I thought was more important anyway, and more doable in 70 minutes.
The twist totally got me.
Okay, yeah.
Back to the green room.
She was excellent.
Back to the green room.
All right.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.